Well, despite this desire for permanence that we all have, everything's transient. Change is axiomatic. And at the time, we didn't know how appropriate this title would be or how poignant it would be. I'm sorry, it's still really difficult. The whole process of making this exhibition has been a deep process. It's been difficult, it's been rewarding, it's been rich, and it's just a reflection of life. We never know what's going to happen. Everything's transient, everything passes away. And we know that, but we don't really pay attention to it. We don't usually live our lives that way. This is part of what life is, you know, and if I've learned anything in this last year since Douglas died, it's that everything passes and everything changes, and the best thing is to let it flow. You can't hold on to anything. It's okay. Yeah. And making this work has been really important for me. And one of the lessons I've really learned, at the beginning I thought, of course, I was just going to make it exactly the way that we had talked about it. And I soon realized that that was just impossible. It's just not possible to do without Douglas's input, without his collaboration. And so while I've really tried to remain true to the intention, the spirit of the work, it has necessarily changed and has become different from the original intention. It's far less finished than Douglas would have preferred. The concept came out of a conversation that we had. I was writing or rewriting my artist statement, and I mentioned how peripatetic a life I had led, realized that I had lived in 35 homes, and asked Douglas how many he had lived in, and it turned out to be 10. We just thought that's a lot of places to have lived in. And so we started talking about the concepts of transience and permanence in relationship to home and our concept of home, which we all tend to carry with us no matter where we live. There were a lot of really joyful parts of our relationship, and one part was that we felt very much at home with each other. And it wasn't about a physical space so much, it was more the process of our relationship. And I guess that's the part that we really wanted to recreate in this exhibition. I can't say that it really developed in a logical or linear way. It was a leap from, hey, that's kind of an interesting conversation, let's make an exhibition about it. And that is kind of the way that we tended to work, or that I tend to work, and Douglas too, in making those intuitive leaps. It was a concept that we had been talking about, not only in the context of home, but in art making. Both of us were working with the idea of home and nesting. Nests were a concrete object that showed up in our work, both because we found them a lot on the property and collected them. We have this little collection of nests, from hummingbirds to robins. Before I was doing this, I lived in Chicago, and I moved to the Comox Valley specifically to go to Emily Carr and complete a degree I started many years ago at SFU in Emily Carr. How I really got into this is I started working with Douglas as his assistant, and we started collaborating, and the rest was history. It was almost 5 years that we worked together. The biggest and most obvious challenge, of course, is doing it without Douglas, and that's been hard on so many levels because we talked all the time and because we spent so much time together working and talking. It was a huge hole in my life. It was very, very difficult for me for a long time to go into the studio. That was one of the worst places for me because I just missed him. The second obvious challenge was just the physical difficulty of working with heavy materials, working with metal. And I would like to acknowledge the amazing, generous support of many of our friends who really came in and helped, doing boring things like carrying stuff or grinding or cutting or, a number of things that really helped support the work to go forward. And so I've ended up really collaborating with a lot of my friends, contemporaries and artists. And that has helped to recreate the spirit of working with Douglas, who always worked with a team. He was certainly the maestro, but very generous in his ability to mentor people and to give feedback and to really encourage people to step up to the plate. And he did people the honor of holding them as able and telling them to get on with it, that they were bigger than their excuses. And he always said to his students that if he ever met them in competition outside in the real world once they'd graduated, that he would be, out there competing with them. And I think that was really a great thing. I think that really encouraged people. He would basically say, come on, you can do this. He called me his star, and that was quite lovely. Certainly I have been encouraged and supported by the people that have helped in making the work with me. None of us do anything alone, and Douglas was very aware of that. He was very generous always in his acknowledgement of people and the kind of teamwork that occurred. And he said that in every submission that he made. He acknowledged the kind of people, the kind of teamwork and support that he got, which is tremendously important.